Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now March 20th of 2020, and ever since the release of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, a lot of fans around the world have been very intrigued about the future of the Star Wars franchise by Disney and Lucasfilm. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, the thing about Lucasfilm and Disney as of right now is that, of course, the new Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, is really making big changes over at Lucasfilm to really create a better brand when it comes down to Star Wars, to really make it a more successful brand at that as we go throughout the next 10 years of the 2020s. Now, the thing about the new Star Wars universe, which by the way is going to consist of books, novels, comics, video games, movies, and TV shows and animated TV series out there, that's really all going to interconnect with each other just like the MCU. It really does tell us that Disney is very ambitious, whether or not that is, through desperation or being very generous to the fans, we're not quite sure. I myself am leaning more so toward the fact that Disney is in a state of damage control and in a phase of desperation. Now, when we look at everything related to writer and director Rian Johnson, if you really look at everything wrong with Star Wars, the big problem with the Star Wars fans, the great divide as I like to call it, is that Rian is definitely the person to blame because of all of this with the Last Jedi as a movie and his take on the character of Luke Skywalker and how that all really progressed from there throughout the years. So, what's really intriguing all has to do with director Rian Johnson, where now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are finished with The Rise of Skywalker, they are focused on their new Star Wars trilogy of films, as well as their new Star Wars universe. Now, it's noted that Disney has multiple plans in place in order to create a better future for Star Wars in general, where it's described that many changes are being made over at Lucasfilm in order to create a better future for the Star Wars brand. It's noted that director Rian Johnson has been very frustrated behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm since the new Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, put an end to the plans of his new Star Wars trilogy and divided those films into 3 separate Star Wars movies. It's noted that Johnson is furious with Star Wars fans right now for the ones who created The Last Jedi backlash and how that ultimately led to the new Star Wars trilogy plans coming to an end that got canceled by the new CEO. Not just that, but also Johnson is angry with the fans and how the backlash of The Last Jedi also led to Johnson losing the offer to direct and write an episode for The Mandalorian Season 2, where it's noted that Johnson was originally in the cars to handle an episode or 2 for the second season of The Mandalorian, and that recently those plans have been put to an end because of the fan backlash with The Last Jedi and how that specifically led to the poor box office results for The Rise of Skywalker and more. Johnson is now said to be focused on his sequel to Knives Out and is still with Lucasfilm, surprisingly. So the thing about Rian Johnson, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there will agree with me on this, is that this is the individual that really created big problems within the Star Wars universe and, of course, within the Star Wars community because of what The Last Jedi did to the Star Wars universe. Who would have thought that, the middle film of the sequel trilogy of all things would really create such a mess within the Star Wars universe? Now, when we look at everything related to The Rise of Skywalker, yes, it did not make as much as it really should have. It really should have made more, around $2.5 billion, maybe even $3 billion at the box office worldwide at maximum, right? But it only made a little over $1 billion worldwide, and a lot of that had to do with a lot of people boycotting the movie, a lot of people being very bitter since they saw The Last Jedi and wanted nothing to do with the very end of the Skywalker saga. I mean, this really was a big deal. And Disney now finally realizes that The Last Jedi backlash really is a real thing. It seems only money talks to a lot of the companies out there like Disney. Now, when you look at it this way, right, Rian Johnson, he's still attached to Lucasfilm. There's still a possibility that he is going to direct/write a Star Wars movie. And when we mean a Star Wars movie, that could very well mean that he's going to be on board with other creatives that will be a part of a new Star Wars film. Kind of similar to how originally, for example, Solo: A Star Wars Story was going to have 2 different writers and 2 different directors, and the new Star Wars trilogy was going to have 2 writers and directors and more. So it could very well be similar to it in that sense, where Rian will only be a part of the creation of a Star Wars film. That's very possible as to why he's still attached over at Lucasfilm. And like I say, I mean, the original ideas that Johnson had for his new Star Wars trilogy and how that was put to an end, as well as his new Star Wars universe and all those different ideas, and how he's furious with fans over this because of how they created the backlash. You know, like I've said before, Johnson really seems like he does not care about the Star Wars universe. In fact, he actually admitted this in a recent interview that he doesn't really care about universes per se. He cares only about building his own creation, essentially, his own universe, if you will, and not really clinging on to what was already done before in the past. So with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.